This is New Ways of Being podcast, and I am the host, Raymond Posch. I hope all of you are doing great and getting new and better ideas of what we are as human beings and what we are capable of becoming as we learn to be who we truly are. Now, we are more than just human beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. This is episode 13, and it's a follow-on update from episode 10. There may be a little bit of overlap with that one, but this is all new information. And let me summarize by saying this. Amazing things have been happening for me. And I want to share these things because every one of you is worthy and capable of experiencing similar breakthroughs and even more. Now, please note that this episode is scripted because there have been many different threads being woven into something new in what has been happening for me. And I want what I have to share to be clear and as succinct as possible. So scripting was the best choice for that. Normally, I work with an outline and not a script, but in this case, I felt I could be much clearer by doing that. And I am very excited to share with you my own recent experiences of being in new ways, being in new ways. And it is my intent to share this directly and honestly from me to you without inflating it or making it anything other than what I have personally experienced. Now, to set the tone, I would like to begin with the question of what awakening is. Matt Kahn is a spiritual teacher, and he is one of my teachers. And in a Q&A session recently, he was asked to define awakening. And he answered with this metaphor: it is like the wave remembering it is the ocean. Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard this metaphor before in some form, but let me repeat that. It is like the wave remembering it is the ocean. So let me explain briefly. I don't want to take a whole lot of time in doing this, but you are like a wave on the ocean of pure consciousness. That's what we refer to as the universe, the divine, or by many other names. But it is one pure consciousness that is the source of all in the universe. And we are a part of that. You could say we are like a wave on that ocean of consciousness. And when we finally remember that we are the ocean, for me, it was a big breakthrough. I knew conceptually this idea for quite a long time. I haven't counted the years, but maybe 20 years, I don't know. But it is something else to fully know it deep down within you that you are the divine expressing itself through you. You are God. Now, any of you that were raised as Christians or maybe in some other religions as well, they teach that is blasphemy, but they are completely misunderstanding the nature of that when they say that. Even in the Bible, Jesus said that we are God. We are all gods. And so that's been kind of whitewashed over a lot of time. But when you come to know that you are that one consciousness expressing through you, uh, and it's not, again, it's not a thought, it's something that you have to know deep down. It is a remembering, or we could probably define it or explain it in many other ways. But um, when you really have the breakthrough of what that really is and means to you and for you, it is quite powerful. So with that as something to think about, let me go ahead and dive into what has been happening with me. So I'm going to tell you about what I'm calling breakthroughs and awakenings that I've experienced in. Now, this is actually over um, multiple months, more than just the month or two that it's been since episode 10. But let me begin by saying that over the last 6 months or so, I've learned to be open and allowing the universe or divine or God, whatever name you prefer to put on it. I've been allowing the universe to guide me through changes that are right for me. And so that's kind of a surrendering. But you heard me um, in episode 10 talk about opening and allowing, which is something that I've been hearing very strongly emphasized in recent months and weeks. So I've learned to be more open and allowing and to let the universe guide me. Whereas in the past, I've always, our normal way of operating is we work real hard to think about something and plan it and to make it happen. And we have ideas of how we think it should happen. So we try to do that. Though we try to bring those ideas into expression. Well, so what I've learned is to no, stop trying. Stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to do this or that and let the universe or the divine or God or what I sometimes call divine wholeness to guide me in this. And so that means that I have to pay a lot more attention to my intuition. I've had to really focus on my intuition. What is it telling me? And much more than any previous normal for me. And it started, I would say, more as kind of with nudges in certain directions. And the problem with nudges is sometimes it's hard to be clear, to clearly know what you're being told. And this has become much more than simple nudges as I have gone through this process. So let me continue and explain as best I can. And I would say, you know, over the last, since about the first of the year, I would say, wow, the universe has put me on an intense training program. And it actually began back in August of 2023 when I was guided to purchase a book called The Wisdom of the Council by Sarah Landon. And I talked about that in episode 10. But I've been studying that book ever since. And what is in that book comes from this group of entities in the universe that Sarah Landon refers to as the council. And she has channeled all of the information in that book from them. It's not from her, it's from the council. And this book really rang bells with me. This was exactly what I needed at this time. And so I've been studying the book. There is a lot to absorb. And so I read it several times and then I've studied all the different parts of it and actually in different sequences. And I've gone back and now I'm actually rereading it again through. But it has changed my life. And but that was only just the beginning. But from that book, I've learned some really key things. The first was that we get more of who we are, not not more of what we want, more of who we are. And if you really think about that, you know, that says who you are being right now is telling the universe of what you want, who you are being, that is what you want. And the problem is that most of us have been wrapped up in roles that we have been playing in our careers and in our lives. Um, and, you know, in the way we've grown up, I've talked about this in episodes over years that we are driven by ego, the mind, and it's the accumulated programming that has come from our parents and our teachers and our spiritual teachers and our the things we pay attention to in our life, the books we study, etc. But so let me just leave it at that, and because I can spend an hour talking about it. Number one is we get more of who we are. Very important. Number two, we are the creators of our own experience. And when you think about that, it says that there's not this fixed reality out there that we think. We are creating our reality with our own perception. So very important. And third is that heaven on earth consciousness is available to everyone on the path to awakening. The book emphasized that so strongly. And I stepped into it. And very quickly, I began to feel that heaven on earth consciousness and began to make it a part of my life. Now, heaven on earth is exactly what you might imagine it to be, or you might imagine heaven to be, but it is here on earth in this lifetime. And so, we can imagine everything to be, heaven is everything perfect, or, we've certainly been told that's what it is, and I believe that it is. Heaven is, it is love, it is peace and harmony and well-being and goodness and freedom and abundance and all of those things and more. So let's go from there. Now, so I've basically said we are all part of the divine. And so heaven on earth must be intended for every person. We are all part of the divine. It's not just one of us or two of us. It is you and me and everyone. And but also it cannot be forced on people. People decide if they want heaven or hell or something in between. That's a big realization. That's a big shift because that's not the way we've been taught in growing up. And but let me go on. Again, this gets into deep things, but all of these points I would say for you, if you are here listening to this, get the book, think about these key things, and find out what that means for you. So, going from that, every day I focus on allowing, or actually, I focus on uh, allowing energy to flow through me and to expand my awareness. The council talks about this in detail, but I I allow energy to flow through me and to expand my awareness. And I focus on being open and allowing. And I usually I don't just leave it at that. I kind of elaborate on it in some ways. I open and allow energy to serve me. I open and allow magic and miracles to surprise me. I open and allow heaven on earth to happen more for me every single day. So opening and allowing. And I allow the creation and experience of my own heaven on earth within me. And so it's not something that's fixed. I'm participating in this creation. And I elaborate it in certain ways for what I want. And I want heaven on earth to be uh, loving and wonderful for every human being, for all of life on the earth, for the planet itself, for the land, for the oceans, et cetera, et cetera. So I elaborate it in many ways, but uh, I create this. It's more than an idea. It is a vision and it's a feeling of what heaven on earth is for me. And then I extend it out to reality, all of reality around me. And so, and when I say that, that begins with, my immediate home and neighborhood. And then I expand it outwards to all of my community. And in my case, the metropolitan area of Denver and the state of Colorado and the United States, and from there out into the world. Now, the creation of my heaven on earth, as it has progressed and expanded and become more real to me, has been an awakening in itself. This is, I've had visions and ideas of what I want for myself, at different points. Probably every year or maybe every month, I've had some different vision of what I would love to create. But this is related to that. But this already has become, in the last 6 months, has become something much more real and profound than I could have imagined. Um, and so I now feel it as at a much higher level of consciousness than when I started. So we are creating our own reality, our own experience of life and what we think is real. And to truly be that and to experience it, we're talking about levels of consciousness, levels of awareness, not thinking, but experiencing it as something that is. And so if you have an idea or some kind of experience of higher levels of consciousness, that's what I'm talking about. Now I'm kind of setting the stage here, but I'm going to try to stick to reading this script more because I'll take too much time otherwise. So in October of 2023, I started the New Ways of Being podcast. And in a sense, it has provided a structure for my continued learning and awakening process because, well, for number one, the podcast, uh, by its nature of what I want it to be, I want to focus on beingness, and it puts me into touch with some incredible people who I've learned from and who have helped me step more and more into more powerful and joyful ways of being. Now, most of those people have been guests on my show or in my previous podcast, Our Spiritual Life. Um, but just in some of my research, etc., I come into contact with other teachers as well, things that I read and books that I read. And so let me go on with this story of awakening in recent months. Uh, Episodes 4 and 7 stand out because of my conversations with Seth Dietland and Joshua Bloom, respectively. And those two men have become teachers for me. They have had a strong influence on my awakening process. My interaction with Seth Dietland in episode 4 in November of 2023 led to, number one, my attending his webinar on January 13th of 2024 on how to talk with angels. And subsequent to that, I experienced my first actual conversation with angels on the next day, which was incredible. And I think I'll stop and read that for you here in just a moment. And then I was guided very strongly to attend a course that Seth offered called Divine Dialogue, Learning to Speak with Angels. And that was in January. And as a result of that, one of the things that he strongly suggested in that course was to start journaling and specifically doing automatic writing. I'm sure many of you or most of you have heard about automatic writing. I don't know if you've experienced it. So I started doing that, and I'm continuing to do that. I don't do it every day. It's been kind of working out to be about every other day. But for you, I would recommend this, and many people, doing it every day is a great thing. And the outcome of all that I learned from Seth Dietland is I've learned to communicate with God and angels and spirit guides, and most of it's been through journaling and automatic writing. I have had some experiences in like my morning walks or meditation separately when I was not doing the writing. But that was actually dependent on my learning several other things, which I will point out as I proceed. So, it's journaling or automatic writing by itself will not get you to the level of intuition. And by the way, many people have strong kinds of intuition that are very different from myself. I have never been highly intuitive like an intuitive or empath usually is, starting at a young age. And some people experience visions. Some people experience spiritual beings talking to them. Some people feel nudges. Some people get messages of various types, and some of those are, uh, you know, clear vision or clear audio or uh, other ways of experiencing information from the spiritual realm. So I I've learned to communicate, and for me, it has been in the form of actual conversations. And I think that's because that's what I have always desired. I experienced um, conversations with God back in 2019, I think it was. Um, and then I had blockages come up, and I really wasn't able to do it since until I took that course. And so that's one set of things that's happened. Let me go on. My interaction with Joshua Bloom in episode 7 in January 2024 led me to number one, me acquiring my first crystal pendant from him. After the episode, he very graciously gave me one of his crystal pendants that he makes. Um, and and from him I learned that the crystal pendants changed his life. They changed his energy state, his spiritual state in other ways. And so that, I had always poo-pooed the idea of crystals having any real effect. But in the meantime, I've learned how powerful subtle energy is. And we're talking about subtle energy, not energy that scientists can measure. So let me go on. I also learned from him about mica as an energy amplifying crystal. And I thought, wow, that sounds very powerful. I rather than acquiring some of his pendants or things that he offer, I acquired my own golden mica pendant, which has been amazing. And I mean, when I first started using it, when I first started using his pendant, I felt some effect, but nothing's super powerful. When I used the mica pendant, I felt this energy and flow. I can only describe it as flow that was amazing. And I loved it. And then I attended Joshua Bloom's Quantum Awakening Retreat, which was over the weekend of February 2nd through the 4th. And I learned how to raise my energy to very high levels, how to actually measure my energy through muscle testing, and and also very importantly, how to release limiting beliefs and energy blockages, which are stored in your body. And all of this is very related to quantum energy and to managing your own quantum energy. And it resulted in my being in the state of what he calls being quantum. I could describe it as to be in full awareness, or to be in full presence in body and mind and spirit, uh, most of the time, not just some of the time. And that enables a person to expand their awareness and basically their infinite potentiality and possibilities, so that your inner self, your intuitive self can tap into that. And then I learned that my that high energy state has become permanent for me. Now I wear my pendants all the time, and I'll talk about that more later. But even without the pendants, I sustain a high energy level now, far beyond what I used to have before taking that training. Um, and so my high energy state and being fully in a state of awareness or presence are what enables me to channel conversations with God and angels and spirit guides. I had tried many times to have a conversation or to interact with, and I wasn't necessarily focusing on channeling previously, but um, I could never do it until I shifted into this high energy state. So the first time that it happened for me in talking with angels, um, I was in a high energy state. Every time before, they people always said, focus on, put your attention on your heart, and um, somehow that never worked for me. And I felt that my heart was open, etc. Um, I think if I'd spent more time being in the state of pure love, uh, it might have happened. I'm not sure, but raising your energy state or frequency is I think a key part of that. So uh I just remembered here. Let me go back and talk briefly about my first conversation with angels. And I actually, this is from an email that I sent to Seth Dietland telling him what had happened. Um, and to me, it was an actual conversation with angels. And, and again, the way I connected was by first going into a high energy state. And I also did, Joshua Bloom teaches you how to go into the quantum field. And that's by putting your attention on your lower spine or your root chakra. And so I did that and then reached out to angels. I asked angels to respond. Um, and so I'm going to read this because it was a description of what happened to me. I got a reply of "Hello, Raymond," and I asked if I was connected to one angel or to a group of angels, because Seth teaches that most often we actually connect with a group of angels, and the fact of connecting with one specific angel isn't usually too important. It might be in certain circumstances, but um, the answer I got was it was a group of angels, and I asked if they had a message for me, and the message was, keep doing what you're doing. And I thought, okay, I had a sense of what I was doing. I was opening and allowing and achieving high energy state. So I was pretty sure they were talking about that. Um, and I asked though, what specifically was good that I was doing, and the answer was, since January 1st, your frequency has been substantially higher. So keep doing that. Keep moving more into the light energy. And I asked if they had helped me before, even if I thought I was talking with God, and most of that was in the past. And they said many times before and recently. For example, when they led me to upgrade my guitar, and I'll have to tell you that story in just a minute. But and I asked if there was a difference between me connecting with God and with them, and they said, "Oh yes, I will know when I talk with God directly," which I have, especially since then. And I asked if I should sign up for. So this was before that course that I mentioned. I asked the angels, should I sign up for his course? And they said, yes, and you will be pleased with the results. And all in all, that conversation with angels I thought was an amazing experience. Um, and I had never tried to connect with angels before. I felt that, why connect with angels when I can connect with God? But I've learned that in fact, we all have guardian angels, and they work with us uh, as much as they can and to the degree that we allow them to. And so enough said. Now, I mentioned a little story about the angels led me to upgrade my guitar. I About a year ago, or more than a year ago, um, I had thought about, I do folk singing, um, usually every week, one or more performances a week for senior facilities, for seniors. And um, so one day I was thinking, if things keep going good and I have an opportunity to upgrade my guitar, what would I get? And I had uh, a kind of a guitar called a Seagull, and they're very nice guitars, very good guitars. And after studying all kinds of different models, I just had decided on an upgraded model of Seagull that was cost about $1,000. And you can go well beyond that. You can spend many more, tens of thousands for Taylor guitars and others. But so I had kind of picked out a guitar. Well, then one day in January, or December, I've forgotten now when it was. I think it was in December. I did this performance, and I was having problems with my guitar that I had never experienced before. Um, the uh, the part that holds the strings at the top of the fretboard had shifted off a little bit. That had never happened before. Did not happen. It wasn't that way when I had practiced before going to my performance. So I don't know what happened, but and then I fixed that, and I kept having to retune my guitar during the performance. Well, after that, I went. Uh, I don't remember now if it's that same day or the next day, but I went to my local music store that sells used guitars, and I went in and I said, I'm having problems with guitar. I want to see if what's available. And I went in and looked at their used guitars, and there was a used version, that model of Seagull that I wanted, and for a very low, reasonable price. It's a used guitar. And I bought it, actually did a trade in. And I realized at the time, wow, this is kind of a bit of a miracle that uh, I found this guitar, that a model that I liked, I wanted, and circumstances made it happen. So I was told it was the angels that in a way they were kind of being what is the word? I don't know, but they uh, I had a very unpleasant performance because of that guitar, but they got my attention, and I went directly and looked, and I found the guitar that they wanted me to know about. All right, let me go on. Now, um, I was also very strongly guided to another training course by the spiritual teacher Matt Kahn, which I've occasionally mentioned. He's very well known, and he channels um, information, and he's very intuitive, but he's a great teacher for others. And the course was called The Art of Awakening. And when I read the description, I felt very drawn to attend that course. So I signed up, and it was basically, it ran through the month of uh, February of this year, 2024. And in it, I learned some really important lessons about awakening. And so I'd like to run through those with you quickly of what they are. But before the course ended, I experienced a very powerful spiritual awakening that I realized kind of during and especially afterwards in one of his training sessions, that it was an integration of ego, soul, and body. And in the process of it happening, I went through I've had Kundalini experiences in the past. It was not that, it was different, but energy was moving through my body in very powerful ways. And I could tell I was going through this big shift, and it was all kind of triggered by my thinking about the wave, remembering that it is the ocean. And then I was beginning to feel in myself and in my spirit and my body more of insight and awakening to the inner knowing that I am divine. I am spirit in human form, and that I am consciousness itself, capable of creating and expressing the life I desire to experience while in human form. Now, let me just tell you some of the things I learned from this course, but because I think many of you could very much relate to these key points. One that was taught is being is a verb. It it is not a thing. It is a verb. It is an action. It is when you are being, you are experiencing something. And so that's what that's talking about. And it is about being truly and totally authentic. And so he had some really fantastic teachings about that. Um, how you can step more and more into being truly yourself and totally yourself. And a part of that is being totally honest about what you are experiencing. Um, he talked about choosing, really getting to the point of that in your life, you are choosing what is happening in your life and doing things and being ways rather than must. Not so much of what we're wrapped up in is I must do this and I must do that and I have to be this kind of person. And if you can get past all of that role playing, which that is what it is, and choose to be what you want your life to be and your experience to be and your beingness to be, choosing is super important. And another aspect of awakening is awareness, having awareness, being aware that you are being aware. So it's awareness of awareness itself, and it's a very powerful state. I learned to evolve. We must let parts of our old self die so that new aspects can be born. And he spent really one whole module on that, letting parts of ourself die and how we experience that. And it tends to be very In its deepest form, it is dark night, the dark night of the soul. It can be difficult. It can be traumatic in some ways. We work through uh, experiencing parts of ourself and then choosing to let that part of ourself go, let it die. Awakening. Now, this is a big one. And I don't think I've done a real clear job of this in some of my early episodes of New Ways of Being podcasts, but awakening is not this major thing that happens and it's done. It is a continuous process that continues throughout one's life. There are always higher levels of consciousness to step into. So it is a process of becoming more aware and being more aware of what life calls us to be. He talked about that, and it's Matt Kahn I'm talking about now, who is the teacher. Let go of labels and judgments and old stories. All of those things limit us. They keep us in our mind, and our true beingness is in our state of beingness, our state of awareness, or state of presence. Any of those three words are describing what I talk about. It is about being consciousness in form, and we can learn that I am consciousness creating the life I wish to experience in every moment. We are in that creating process in every moment, actually. It's not something we do some of the time, we do it all of the time. So if you're not really aware of yourself, your inner self, your thoughts, your feelings, etc., then you are going to create by default. And that's usually something we don't entirely want. And I am creativity itself expressing who I really am. Creativity is a key part of our beingness. Our beingness is creative, and that relates to the title of that course, The Art of Awakening. And then and there were 4 modules, so I'm kind of going through these 4 modules. And in the last module, I am awakening and balancing and harmonizing masculine and feminine energies within me. That's an important part of awakening. If you don't address both of those, like a man may be inclined to say, well, no, I'm not going to think about feminine. I'm not feminine. But if you don't bring into yourself feminine energies, which have to do with nurturing and being more open and intuitive and community and in flow, many of those things are considered more feminine energies, as opposed to masculine, which is doing and being strong and etc. But it requires both, and it requires balance to be fully awake. Something else he talked about I thought was very powerful, and he talked about holding space for your emotions, your feelings. And I'm hoping that you can get a sense of what that means. It means to allow, to hold space means to give yourself room to let something else happen, to honor your own emotions and to allow them to, if those are negative emotions, to let them go. Um, I am the living embodiment of my higher self. So this kind of goes back to the very beginning of what I've said about awakening. Um, we have to choose to embody. It's one thing to know that we are divine beings, that the divine is within us, and it's divine. The divine is within everyone and everything. But until you choose to be the living embodiment of that, then you're not likely to bring it into yourself. I mean, we were all, especially those of us who were raised as Christians, and it's probably true of other religions. Um, we were taught that God, the divine, is separate from us. And so to shift that and to allow yourself to be the living embodiment of what you really are. You are one consciousness, which is the divine or God. Um, it's not likely to happen until you allow it to happen. And the very last thing he said in the fourth module was to come to know totally and fully, I am spirit in form, in human form. And so it was a fantastic course. Again, it changed me in several ways, but it helped me definitely integrate ego and soul, because until that happens, um, it's the ego will always be trying to rise up. You may be in touch with your soul, but the ego will always be saying, well, I think we should, you know, do this, be a different way. And once we can fully integrate, totally integrate our ego and soul, then the ego becomes balanced. The ego comes under control. It so you can't really eliminate the ego. Some teachers talk about not killing the ego, letting the ego die, but you know you have to have a sense of yourself as a individual being, because you are, and you're simultaneously the whole ocean of consciousness as well. So, um, all right, now I got to keep going. Uh, I found that crystals are are totally fascinating, and they are powerful metaphysical tools. Um, and I learned about some of the specific properties of some specific crystals. Um, energy amplification, healing, manifesting. Um, I acquired a number of different crystals. Since then, I acquired black mica, amethyst, Herkimer diamonds, and pyrite crystals. And all of those have different benefits, and selenite. And I've created, um, this is a pendant that I created. It's a selenite blade with a black mica crystal on it and a amethyst crystal. And I'm actually thinking about starting to make uh, crystal pendants for sale. I'll see if I haven't committed to that yet, but I may. And if I do, I will let you know through my website. Uh, and I was further guided to take another course by Seth Dietland called Calibrating Your Abundance Blueprint, which I started on March 8th. So I'm just actually about to start my second week of that. But it's very much focused about opening and allowing and receiving abundance and expansiveness in one's life. And this is something important because we don't often stop and think in terms of expansiveness, but the nature of the universe is that it is expansive. God is expansive. God is becoming more conscious through uh, beings like ourselves, like human beings. But there are other beings on different planets and in the universe, the spiritual universe. So it's expansiveness is it's important to align with that nature of the universe itself. Universe and spirit and consciousness are expansive, and we must align with that. And aligning with it allows our very nature as an individual being to expand, to be to let life take a higher form. Abundance is one part of that, but there's more aspects than just abundance. They are natural aspects. Abundance is a natural aspect, and expansiveness are natural aspects of heaven on earth, of what we can make that into. And this course is still in progress for me at this time. I can't say where that's going to end up, but I think it will be interesting to see what I learn from that. So I'm kind of trying to come to the end here. I really have, let's see, I feel like I have experienced a great many breakthroughs because of this intense training program that the divine has guided me to and through. And so let me summarize the key breakthroughs. And and the key point about this, these breakthroughs are all available to you as well. Now, you may, if you open and allow yourself to be guided by the universe, it may guide you through a much different sequence than has happened for me. I don't know. But for me, uh, these are the breakthroughs I've experienced. One, learning to trust my intuition and allow myself to be guided by the divine. Now, I've read books on surrendering and other books and teachers that have talked and touched on this before, and they all say that when ego is in control, if you are mostly in your mind and not in your beingness, then that doing that is going to be very hard for you. You will not be able to do it fully until you get your mind under control, step out of your mental process, be in awareness or presence or beingness most of the time, and then you can allow yourself to be guided by the divine. And it is an incredible experience. When you do that, magic and miracles happen on your behalf. I've experienced them happening on my behalf. And so that's number one. Number two, uh, I have become fairly regular at journaling and auto writing. And auto writing means you don't force yourself to write specific things. You let whatever will come to you, and you write it down as it comes to you. But it has been, for me, it's been a very nice way to keep track of what has been happening, what I'm doing, and the progress I've been making, and the big changes I've experienced, and especially the details of the channeled conversations that I've had with God or angels or other guides that I've had conversations with. And so what's very nice is then I can go back to my journal This is my journal here. Uh, and it it's nice to go back and reread that conversation with God or the conversation with the angels and what I I said, or usually it's my asking, and they provided the answers, and to read what they said. Um, and one of the things that anyone should rightfully question when you're channeling in general or channeling a conversation is this real or is this my imagination talking? And and in fact, I've asked God, how can I know? And the answer is the only way to know is to be in a full state of awareness. And when you are in a full state of awareness, it's not thoughts coming to you in words, it is awareness coming to you in the form of, for me, it's ideas or concepts, and I have to translate it into words. So in a way, I'm making some choice on words, trying to understand what they're telling me through kind of it's like telepathy, I guess. Um, but at any rate, the answer I was given is if you're thinking about it, uh, it's not going to be completely real. But if you know that you are in a total state of awareness, so that means you have to know what that is. If you haven't done it, go study. What different teachers say about shifting into that state. Eckhart Tolle, in his book The Power of Now, he talks about inner body awareness as a technique to become more shifted into awareness. And you can go more deep into that awareness and go into your very source. And if you can know what that is, you will know you are in a full state of awareness, and um, and that what is happening in awareness is experience of your true spiritual self and in relationship to the spiritual world around you. Yeah, nowadays I use the phrase divine wholeness, or I could use the phrase divine oneness, uh, kind of the same thing. But more and more, I'm realizing there's this spiritual realm of spiritual beings that are mostly in the spiritual realm, but to some degree, people who are awakened, you can relate to that through them as well, if you know through awareness that they are awake. So let me go on. Number 3, being assured by the divine that being the creator of your own life experience is something that you have control of. Yet you do create your own life experience, know it or not. But it can be and should be fun. I haven't emphasized that up to this point, but the more that I've shifted into heaven on earth, that state of consciousness, that state of beingness, it's become more and more vibrant, more alive, more fun. It, so the divine pointed that out to me. It should be fun. Number 4, clarity about my purpose, which I've realized is to fully create and experience heaven on earth myself, and then share that experience with as many people as possible. For me, that's probably going to be mostly through my new ways of being podcast, although I'm I'm probably going to start offering some training services as well. Um, I'm being guided by that. I've been told that I will. So but I'm going to be let it happen in its own time and way, and being guided, not forcing it to happen in some specific way. Um, but for me to share my experience as I'm doing here and to help others experience heaven on earth for themselves. So, you can begin without me by studying that book, The Wisdom of the Council. Um, it is a fantastic book if you are ready for this stage of your of being in your life. You will know it, and if you're not, if you get the book and you're reading it and you're not making sense of it, and it doesn't just scream out to you that this is how you advance to the next stage of being, then you probably need something else. But so clarity about purpose, and I've in my conversations with the divine, I've asked, am I understanding my purpose correctly? And I've had confirmation and yes, and not just yes, but I've been told wholeheartedly step into it. So that's what I'm doing. Number 5, I'm able to maintain high spiritual energy states or frequency, and specifically the I am creator frequency most of the time. It's important to practice awareness and energy states as often as you can, because you acclimate yourself and it becomes more and more a habit in your way of being. And as I've said, for me, this opens the door to quantum energy transformation, releasing blockages, connection and communication with what I like to refer to as divine wholeness, as I said, or divine beings. Number 6 is communication with God and with angels and with spiritual guides, and even specifically with the council that book comes from. And I don't do that all at once. Well, actually, sometimes I specifically reach out to God, or I specifically reach out to my guardian angels, or I specifically reach out to spiritual guides these are other beings that I've learned are here to help me. And they're not necessarily angels. And I've specifically reached out to the council on occasion as well. And so for me, because it is in the form of conversations, it is incredibly powerful and amazing, because I can ask questions and receive immediate answers. And but otherwise I'm also getting ongoing guidance. I ask for, what message do you have for me, or what task do you recommend I do today? Now, as I said, I don't know if all people are going to be able to have their intuition speak in the form of a conversation. If you're happy with it in the form, taking other forms, that's fine. I will, until I work with people directly, individually, I probably am not going to know the answer, but I think that if you raise your energy to a high enough level, it can be in the form of conversation, but I've not been able to confirm that yet. And when I talk about energy, when I attended that quantum energy retreat with Joshua Bloom, the very first energy measurement I took was just as I was, and it was at the energy level of 900. And I think that's probably translatable, or it can be stated as 900 hertz or 900 vibrations per second. And then I consciously focused on being in the state of pure love. And my energy level went up to, I believe it was 19,000, if I'm remembering correctly. I have it in one of my journals. Later, I was able to raise my energy level to over 100,000 vibrations per second. And now I'm normally when I check, I'm and I don't do anything special to raise. I was taught special ways of raising my energy, but I think I'm about 80 or 90,000, but I can raise it to much higher than that. Um, so um, yeah, so let me just give you a couple of more examples. I, this has happened multiple times, so I'm going to mention it. I've asked, "Do you have a message for me today?" And I believe, and by the way, I can ask it to divine oneness or divine wholeness, just broad spectrum, and I don't know if my answer is coming from God. Again, there's such a unity of beingness I've learned that it is all one. And in some ways, it doesn't make a difference. But God can speak to you as an individual, as a personality in itself. Now, God is collectively all of everything. So that's the complete definition of God. But God speaks to individuals in a personal way. And so it can make a difference. But I could do it either way. I can ask angels or I can ask divine wholeness, and I get an answer. And more than once, I've gotten the answer, a kind of a reminder: smile, relax, and enjoy life more. Sometimes you get too wrapped up in, I have to do it a certain way. And that's a very good, fantastic reminder. Smile, relax, and enjoy life. Heaven on earth is about that. It's about a wonderful experience. And I'm being assured that I will be guided how to promote the New Ways of Being podcast. I've not done anything yet to fully promote it in new ways and increase the number of listeners, etc. But I know that will happen, and I will be guided. But I've been told, master staying in expanded awareness and in heaven on earth first, and then the other things will naturally follow. I did ask the question one time, is it my high energy state that enables my divine dialogues? And the answer was yes, combined with presence, being fully aware. Um, and something that happened, I think, in the past week was I asked when, and that's because I heard Matt Kahn talk about when he channels, he goes into the gamma state of brainwave state. And I really wasn't even that familiar with the gamma state. I'd heard of it before. It's the highest frequency of brainwaves. And I asked, when I am in communion with the divine, it feels so good. And it does. And I asked, is it because I am in the gamma brainwave state? And the answer was yes. The gamma brainwave state feels good. And you can shift into it in meditation, but when you shift into full awareness, full presence, full beingness. It feels good. Okay, number 7. I was recently told by the divine that I will soon be guided in how to share my experiences, such as I'm doing in this episode, and in how to offer services to others to help them experience similar breakthroughs and awakenings. So I've been guided. I need to, and I will offer those services. And I've been told, wait till it happens. Wait till the time is right. Keep moving. I've been told, keep being in awareness and love and heaven on earth, if possible, all of the time. So I've been steadily working on that. I was also told to think of myself as a way shower rather than a spiritual teacher. There's some distinction, but a teacher, you hear the word teacher, they have a very organized way of teaching. They teach knowledge. And a way shower is more showing the way through experience, not through knowledge, but for my case, it would be I would show others what I have experienced and do what I can to help them experience that as well. But I expect that I will be planning and announcing service offerings probably within the next month or two. That's my sense of what's happening. So, to conclude, let me give you an important message. Now, when I go into the elevated state of beingness, and I often ask the universe or God if there is a message or a task for me that day, I ask the angels that question as well. And I normally receive normally what I receive is very personal and for me only. But I was recently, this was about a week ago, I was told to share the following message with you. The divine is within you and within everyone. The abundance and happiness you seek is within you. Go within. Grow in awareness. Open and allow, and you will be guided to all that you seek. So I think that's a very important and succinct message. It says so much. I hope you have a good sense of what that message said. But the key is you are divine and everyone is divine. So in other words, we need to see the world in that light. Doesn't it change your perspective on other people and the world if you know that everyone and everything is an expression of the divine? It should. So work on that. Go within. Going within is the key. Grow in awareness, shifting into awareness and out of your mind. A part of that can be by going into your body more. That brings you into more awareness. And open and allow, and you will be guided to all that you seek. You have a great day and a great life. We'll be talking much more about all of this, but I hope this has been helpful and informative. Have a great day and a great life.